All right, welcome everybody.
Recording in progress.
Going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to first introduce the committee members and staff we have with us this evening. So first we've got on the committee, Dylan Bailey. Dylan, if you can just nod or wave or raise your hand. Perfect. Adam Mottershead. Adam. Herb Nobes. Herb, there he is. And myself, Kevin Antonias, as chair. We have one member absent this evening. So staff members also present with us this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, Michaela Bray, our Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Michaela, Nirvana Nareen, Student Planner, and Ravneet Multani, a Student Planner. They're also with us this evening. So just a little announcement here regarding live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Just a brief overview of the committee procedures. For the purposes of the Zoom meeting, applicants will be placed in the waiting room until their application is heard. For the purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. You can elaborate on, expand, or give the reasons why you're requesting it. And then any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of this discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions that may be warranted. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email Michaela Bray at the town of Grimsby. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of mailing a decision of the notice for consent to sever and within 20 days of mailing of the decision of notice of minor variances. I thought that was 10 for some reason, the second one. They're both 20. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard, so please address your comments and questions through the chair. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed, but voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. First, I'm going to request a disclosure of interest. Does any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest with respect to the applications that are before us this evening? No, and I have none. Then are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment, Michaela? None? Okay, so first we're going to deal with the minutes of the previous meeting that was held on August 17th, 2021. You've had a chance to review the minutes. Do I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Just raise your hand. I think that's probably easiest. Moved by Adam. Seconder. Oh, Dylan. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed, if any. Was carried. And then we've got 3 applications before us this evening. So we're going to start them one by one. So we'll have a brief overview of the application. Okay, and then we will have any discussion or correspondence will be read regarding anything that's been received to the Secretary Treasurer. And then we'll have the applicant or their representative or agent speak to the application. And then the committee members will ask questions and comments. We'll then open it up to the members of the public if there are any delegations, and then the committee members can ask for the questions and call for a motion. So we'll start with the first one, and we're going to have everybody go back to the waiting room except for the first application, which is 17 Patton Street, B0521. So we'll see you everybody else in a few minutes then. Just going to give Michaela a few minutes to set up here, and then she'll have a PowerPoint set up with the details of the application and the correspondence we've received. So we should have just the owner and or agent representing. So we've got 2 people on this application, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
So the first application we have tonight is B0521 for 17 Patton Street. The purpose of the application is for the creation of a new lot. And then the part that is severed is to be added to an existing lot known as 36 Murray Street. Here is the plan that was submitted by the applicant. On the left of the screen, there are the lands to be severed, and on the right are the lands to be retained. Here's the aerial photography to show context of the neighborhood. And we received correspondence from 5 agencies. So the first is the planning staff, the town of Grimsby. There's no objections to approval. From Bell Canada, they would require a blanket easement over the lands or a 3-meter corridor where the line is. Niagara Region, they have no objections to the approval. NPCA has no objections to the approval. CN Rail has no objections to the approval since there are no additional living units being proposed. And that's all.
All right. Is the owner or their representative here this evening? Is that Nick? Did you wish to add or a comment on the planning report and or the correspondence that we received? I guess the Bell easement would be the more applicable one or relevant one. Nobody else had seemed to have a concern. So the lands are encumbered now with an easement, as I understand, an aerial easement.
Yeah, I think there's an existing easement on it. So
okay. And then the recipient, is that Matt? Are you the recipient owner of the piece?
Yes, I am.
So you're okay with that existing easement then? That's going to be.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Could I clarify? There's
sure.
The Bell line is basically the property line. So is that 3 meters? Is that 3 meters on the severed portion, or is it 3 meters like on center, just like a 3 meter width, or is it total 6 meters?
I understand it's 3 meter wide corridor, 1.5 meter on either side of the center line of the wire.
So it'd be 1.5 meters on the severed portion and then 1.5 meters on the retained portion.
Right.
Okay.
Is there an area? Because I'm not sure with, this is actually this follows your existing property line right at the back. But when you move that line over to the east, that aerial easement will effectively be in the middle of Matt's backyard, the new backyard, right? Because they're not going to move the overhead wire, as I understand it.
The new property line is where the Bell is. Yeah.
Are you sure it's the new one, or is it by the existing one?
Yeah, it's the new one.
Michaela, do you have an aerial on that?
Yep, I'm just going to bring up the correspondence from Bell. They had a map.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Yes, when I was out there, it looks like right now the aerial is going right through the backyard, the middle of the backyard of the applicant. And the new property line will be directly underneath the Bell lines, is what I've found in there. Is that correct?
That's what we're just trying to confirm with this.
Yeah, I can confirm.
Aerial.
I was able to see through you, Mr. Chair. I was able to in our aerial photographs where the poles are, and the poles are in line. There's one pole in the CN right of way that's in line with the new lot line and many of the existing lot lines. So most of the existing lot lines are where the proposed lot line is, rear lot lines. So there's only one abutting lot to the north that has a similar lot configuration to the existing lot configuration of the subject plans. So the proposed lot configuration will be in line with all of the abutting lots to the south, which is where the aerial line use appears to be. And I can see in the aerial photographs evidence of where the poles are.
Okay, that helps. Dylan, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, just so I'm clear, because I'm not understanding Bell's picture versus I think what I've just heard. So is what Bell has said in their correspondence incorrect? Or because it looks like the blue line is sort of at the very back of the existing property. And so should that be severed? It looks like it would be completely on Mr. Oliveira's property. So I'm just, just for clarity, I mean, it's not, obviously it's a condition which, you know, I agree with, but I just want some kind of clarity as to, is it where this blue line is, or is it going to be basically where the extension of the yellow line, lot line will become?
I interpret it the same way you did, Dylan. It looks to me like this blue line is at the existing property line now,
Right.
which would essentially leave it in the middle of Matt's backyard. That was my question.
Yes.
But Walter's verbal answer seems to be different than what's shown on this overhead that we're looking at, right? Am I missing something, Walter? Or are we missing?
Would I be sorry, through you, Chair?
Yep.
If I shared a street scene from Google Maps, which shows where it is on Livingston Avenue and where the line extends to?
Yeah, sure.
Also, Mr. Chair, that line, yellow line is where the bell lines are, not the blue one.
Right. So that
At least according to when I was out there and visited the site.
Right, and that's sort of what Walter's going to confirm here with another aerial or a Google Street View, because I agree that Bell blue line seems to be in the wrong location on the aerial shot that we were just looking at.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the aerial, or that's the street scene from Google Maps from Livingston Avenue. As you see, the line feeds from this pole, and it goes diagonally across Noni's and Subway, and to approximately where the rear lot lines are. The rear lot lines are more or less in line with where the direction that this line is extending to. So if I may go to here, there we are. Can you see that now? Aerial photograph?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so there's a pole here, and there's another pole right there, which is in line here with these. And again, I would encourage the owners to confirm this, which they suggest is accurate. If the owners would confirm where that line is, I'm assuming it's here in line with where the poles are. And this is where the proposed lot line is, right here.
That is correct.
Yeah, the pole is at exactly the proposed lot line.
Okay, that's perfect. But I just think their request for a blanket easement wouldn't be appropriate or necessary, but an easement of 3 meters, 1.5 meter on either side of the existing aerial line would be appropriate. It just might cost you some surveying expense for them to confirm that location. Just
Right,
a heads up.
And through you, Chair, Michaela, I'm assuming you forwarded their correspondence to the applicants.
The correspondence is in the agenda
Yeah.
posted online, but I
Right.
can forward that to the
Right.
applicants.
Yeah, so their request is to have the applicant solicitor contact them directly to to coordinate the establishment of the easement.
Then I would also suggest any motion require a condition incorporating Bell's request to protect that easement as well. Perfect. Yep, it's already written in, so good. Are there any other questions or comments? We're going to start with the applicants or owners or the recipient owner. Are there any other questions or comments that you had for us? At all, Nick or Matt? No? Are there any other questions or comments from the committee members? If not, then do I have a mover and a seconder on this application? There is a circulated motion. The conditions, I'll read the standard conditions first briefly that would be incorporated in the motion. And if you wish to move and second it or amend these motion conditions, you can do so. So the standard conditions suggested for the severance are that the applicant provides Secretary Treasurer with deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel, a registrable legal description of the subject parcel together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for the issuance of the certificate, that the final certification fee payable to the town of Grimsby be submitted, that all conditions of consent be fulfilled within 1 year of the date of the notice of this decision, and that section 3 or 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the severed land. And then this is the unique one for the subject property, that an easement or corridor for Bell Canada be provided to the satisfaction of Bell Canada. So that would be the suggested conditions. 4 of them are standard for a severance, and the 5th is the incorporating the Bell Canada's comments. Do I have a mover and a seconder on that? Adam?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, did you have a question,
Yeah.
Herb?
Mr. Chair, yes. Could I have the motion read once? Because my understanding is it says it's going to be creating a lot, but it's not. It should be part A or part 1 is being severed and being relayed to the property to the
Right.
west in this case, not
Right.
creating a lot.
Right. So that I just read the conditions, but I figured that whoever would move in seconder would have the resolution in front of them, but I can read that. So it's not creating a lot, Herb. So the motion reads as follows: resolve that application B0521 regarding 17 Patton Street for consent to sever 273.11 square meters of land shown as lands to be severed on the circulated sketch be merged with the abutting property to the west for continued residential use. That's the wording of the motion. Sorry, I apologize. I should have read that as well. So that's the way it was read. Adam, do you still support moving that? And then do I have a seconder? Herb? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. Okay, thank you for attending. There's a 20-day appeal period, and then you have 1 year to fulfill all the conditions before it becomes a registrable sale. Anytime before that. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second application will give Michaela a chance to set up. So the second application is for 18 Roslyn Avenue. We have everybody in, then you can begin, Michaela.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, to interrupt.
Yep.
Do we, maybe through you to Michaela, were those resolutions circulated before the meeting? I just don't have them.
I might not have. I might have only sent them to Kevin.
And
Oops.
Are all the committee's members supposed to get them? I just haven't done this without Nancy.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I just assumed everybody had. I'm sorry.
No, of late we normally do. So I was just
Okay.
maybe Kevin, you might just have to do that extra step for us, please.
Yep, no problem. That's why I actually didn't read it. I thought everybody had it in front of them, so that's not a problem. I've got them in hard copy here too, so. Okay, for the second application then for 18 Roslyn Avenue, Michaela?
Is this, can you see the screen share?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the next application we have is A2521 for 18 Roslyn Avenue. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the addition of a covered front porch and stairs. So we have three requested variances tonight. The first one is to permit an interior side yard of 1.05 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. Next one is to permit a front yard encroachment of 2.49 meters for the stairs, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted. And then the final one is to permit a front yard encroachment of 1.88 meters for the covered porch, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted. So here is a plan submitted by the applicant showing the requested variances for the side yard, the stairs, and the covered porch. Here's the aerial view to show the context of the neighborhood. The front yard where the covered porch will be located, as well as the side yard where the variance is requested. As for correspondence, we got 4 pieces. The first one is from town planning staff. There are no objections to the approval. From Niagara Region, they have no objections to the approval. From the NPCA, there are no objections to the approval. And we received a letter of support from one of the neighbors at 16 Roslyn Avenue.
Okay, is the owner or the representative here? Is that Nick or Linda?
I'm the owner and Nick is my representative as well. He's here.
Okay. Did you wish to expand or elaborate at all, Nick or Linda?
Not on my end.
No, looks pretty straightforward. Support from the planning department and no objections from other agencies. Nick, did you wish to add anything? Once you get off mute.
Oh, sorry. You there?
That's much better. Well, maybe not.
Thank
Actually, it was better the other way, Nick.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Chairman, no, I'm not really. I mean, I've gone through the planning report. I mean, basically they've done the 4 tests like I was planning to do, and it seems like we're considered to be a minor application. And I think as has been said in the comments, we're trying to enhance the streetscape and maintain the streetscape and just create a little bit of a outdoor amenity area in the front yard too, so that at least people can enjoy sitting in front on their front porch and enjoy the streetscape, the front yard. Other than that, I think our variances are minor, and we submitted an exterior elevation. I think we can make the house look quite nice. I mean, there's a brand new house next door. I haven't seen the actual letter of support from the neighbor. I'm assuming who is the one that was the brand new house, and they seem to be in favor of it. I haven't read it, but I'm assuming.
Okay, are there any questions?
I'm glad to respond to any questions for the committee.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee members at this time? If not, then do I have a motion to approve or deny? I can read the resolution first. Resolve that submission A2521 for 18 Roslyn Avenue to permit an interior side yard setback of 1.05 meters, whereas 1.8 is required to permit a front yard encroachment of 2.49 meters for stairs, whereas 1.5 meters is required, and to permit a front yard encroachment of 1.88 meters for the covered porch, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted. That's the resolution. Do I have a mover and seconder? Herb and Dylan, seconder. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any. Was carried. And there is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you once again for attending.
Thanks very
Thank
much,
you very
guys. Take care.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. And then the last application is for 2 Livingston Avenue. So we'll give you a second to set up there, Michaela.
Okay, so the applicant. Oh, he is. Okay, I think he's out. Okay, the next application we have tonight is A2621 for 2 Livingston Avenue. The purpose for this application is for relief from a parking requirement to facilitate the development of a commercial building. The variance that they're requesting is to permit a total of 20 parking spaces, whereas 25 are required. So here is the plan as submitted by the applicant showing the variance. Here's the aerial photography showing the context of the area of the site. Photo displaying the current state of the site, vacant land. And we received 5 pieces of correspondence. So from the Town of Grimsby planning staff. Planning staff have objections to the approval. Planning is of the opinion that a deficiency of 5 spaces is inappropriate in the context of the downtown core and would impact the surrounding area. Planning staff are of the opinion that there are alternate solutions for development in this area, which are outlined in the planning comments report. Planning staff are of the opinion that a reduction of 5 spaces is not minor. So from the development department at Niagara Region, they have no objections. From the urban design department at Niagara Region, they have objections to the proposal. Their objection is to the proposed partial second floor as it does not support town or regional design guidelines. They say that there is an opportunity for a building with 2 stories if the first floor is modified that would satisfy the parking requirement. From the NPCA, they have no objections, and from the NEC, they have no objections as they aren't concerned about any visual impacts occurring. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Is the owner or their representative here? Would you wish to speak to the committee or address the concerns that were raised by the planning department?
So
Is it Dax?
yes.
Go ahead.
What Niagara region has explained regarding that second floor, as Michaela mentioned about the second floor, right? Something about the second floor.
Yeah, Michaela, did you send the region comments to the applicants?
They're in the agenda. Have you had a chance to look at the agenda? I could forward you it.
So we can summarize those. She can summarize those comments again. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, they are sent out in the agenda package. So they had a paragraph or so.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to highlight them, Kayla?
Yep.
So what about the 5 parking space? Is it a measure or how do you consider that?
She's just going to go over, she'll highlight the comments that we've got from the region regarding, it's from their urban designer from the region. So Michaela will just highlight the comments that the region made about the request first. And then we'll get you to ask questions if you'd like. Michaela, go ahead.
Okay, so just a summary of the correspondence that we received from the region. They say that the placement of the building close to Livingston Avenue at the intersection of Patton Street is well cited, and that this address will engage with both of the streets and with the public realm. They appreciate the removal of the previous proposed drive-through onto Livingston Avenue, and they think that's an improvement to the site design. Their main urban design concern is with the current proposal for the partial second floor. The proposal for a mostly one-story building is a missed opportunity in this context, as it doesn't support the vision of the town's downtown guidelines or the region's model urban design guidelines. Given the site's location with the downtown, there is an opportunity to create a building with 2 stories that provides a variety of uses, all of which could contribute to the vibrancy of the downtown. For example, the second floor could contain residential units with a rooftop amenity space. This use would create eyes on the street, creating a synergy with the commercial uses below. Several types of commercial uses could capitalize on a second floor location, potentially using some of the rooftop space for outdoor seating and other activities. Any of these potential design solutions could be combined with a modified first floor area to meet the parking requirement without a variance.
So if we increase the second floor, how do we justify parking requirement on that?
Perhaps Walter could respond to that as a planner, because the planning department, Walter also was part of the report that the town submitted regarding a possible solution by maybe reducing the square footage of the ground floor, but replacing it with second floor residential because it's less onerous for parking, right? 1 parking space per residential unit is less onerous than the rate per square foot or per square meter. But I'll let Walter maybe explain that. I guess the highlights of his report that was submitted.
The thing is, we have been proposing a commercial since the beginning, like in the pre-consultation meeting, we haven't changed anything in the residential. We have been proposing everything from the beginning, it was commercial. So like, we don't want to deal with the residential on the second floor.
Okay, that's a possibility. Walter, I'll defer to you first, maybe just to address some of his comments or questions, or how your proposal is just a suggestion, but how that proposal could accommodate a development that wouldn't require a reduction in parking.
Yeah, that was through you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Dax. As we've discussed previously, prior to you submitting the application for minor variance, we felt strongly that a 2-story plan is a very important feature for the site, given its prominence in the downtown. And the downtown also as a major intensification area, it's important for us to, make sure that the maximum potential for each site is realized within the 2-story minimum context. Again, this is just a minimum. The downtown designation permits a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 stories. So here we're just asking for you to meet the minimum requirement. It's just a matter of, in terms of meeting the parking requirement, it's a matter of massaging the building with uses and with floor space that is consistent with the size of the lot and what the lot can support. So in our opinion, the lot can support a smaller footprint, slightly smaller footprint on the main floor, with residential uses on the second floor that aren't as onerous and are more compatible with residential retail uses, as an example, in terms of the demand for parking. So again, our assessment is that the site can be developed, which is in a way that is consistent with the intent and purpose of our official plan and objectives of our official plan, and without actually having to even apply for any variances to permit those uses in that development. So that's our position and the assessment that we've arrived at. And again, we've briefly discussed it previously with you and your team, and again, you decided to proceed with the minor variance application, but that's where our recommendation is.
Okay, so since the beginning, we haven't suggested any of the residential, and in the coming, we want to keep it on a commercial because residential is so complicated, and we don't want to go with each and every process again. So what exactly can we make a floor plan in the commercial to make this site filled with the parking? What are your suggestions in the commercial without except residential?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Are you asking me?
How small? I'm interpreting his question to be how small would the building have to be, or how much would it have to be reduced by maintaining just commercial square footage to meet the parking requirements?
Just commercial
Yeah.
and 2 floors?
Yeah.
That's the key. Again, you'd have to do analysis. We felt that second floor residential is much more viable, an alternative land use for the site than second floor commercial.
I know you are suggesting.
Floor commercial is second floor commercial parking requirement is substantial relative to the residential parking requirement. So, you know, again, you'd have to do your analysis to find out what that would be. In order for the entire building to be 2 floors and all commercial, I think the ground floor area would be probably cut in half, if not less.
Okay.
So, but with residential, the ground floor area, you could still maintain 4 viable commercial units, 4 residential units on the site.
So Walter, what we propose right now is you have issues with the second floor, right?
Yeah.
So is there any guidelines like how much do we need to put on the second story?
Zoning bylaw or official plan say something about the second floor? Do we need to make?
Yeah, that's right. Our official plan says the minimum has to be two stories.
So this is.
So what you're proposing is a relatively small room on the second floor, with the rest of the second floor being a false second floor. So with nothing in behind it. That's not consistent with our official plan.
But the official.
That's not a second floor.
Say like we need to make 50% or like that much square feet on second floor or something like that. That's not specified anywhere.
Well, based on your proposal now, what you're proposing on the second floor is putting you over the minimum or putting you over the parking requirement.
Yeah, so we can cut down a building and like we can fit that parking requirement, but the second story, the zoning bylaw or official plan doesn't say about the second story. It says that it required 2 stories, and
That's right.
This is like 2 stories. Second story is like also workable. It's not like a fake 2 story. So there is a unit.
Well, yeah, I recognize that. Through you, Chair. Again, I don't know if you're okay with the talking back and forth.
Yeah, that's fine. Just for now, and then
Okay.
Dylan has his hand up next. So
yeah, it's again maybe 1/4 of the second floor is floor space of your current proposal, and the remainder is a false second floor with just a wall surrounding a roof, basically.
Yeah, but is zoning bylaw or official plan say something about that much?
The official plan says it should be a 2-story building, and what you're proposing isn't consistent with the intent of the official plan. That's what our comments are.
Dylan, did you have a question?
No, through you, Mr. Chair, and with all due respect to the applicant, I mean the report that was submitted by planning in the agenda goes through quite a substantial, I think, rationale, and there are diagrams and there are suggestions, etc. So I'm just, if it hasn't sort of been, I'm not sure if it's been seen, but if it hasn't, I don't know if here at the committee is the best place to sort of debate, what can be done to the building, because I think, as Mr. Basic has said, this is going to take, I would imagine, some offline, study and reconfiguration. And I think even in the report, and I'm going to get it wrong, I think the region's, urban design group has suggested they could help the applicants, etc. So I'm just not sure if, what the appropriate action would be, but it sounds like this might need some more study. And like I said, if the report hasn't been sort of digested by the applicant quite seriously, then I'm not sure here is the best place to debate that. But I'll leave that through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Did somebody else have their hand up? Adam? Oh, there you, yeah, Adam. Sorry, you're bouncing around the screen here. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I actually had first concern was the there was any elevations that were circulated, because the the urban design gentleman from the region talked a lot about some details, and we haven't seen any elevations. So I don't know if there's any that the planning has that they can share.
Is there any additional information that would share? Although the application or the request this evening is for a variance for a reduction in parking based on square footage. This current application on a square footage basis exceeds the parking requirement. So that's, to Dylan's point too, I guess we're not going to get into suggesting alternatives. The request tonight we have to consider is this application appropriate, given what we have in front of us, a square footage based on a 1-floor plan with a little bit of second floor. Is it appropriate to grant the reduction in parking? Is it considered appropriate, minor in nature? Does it meet the official plan, the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw? Those are the 4 tests that we're going to have to answer as committee members. So if we feel it doesn't, and we've got an opinion from the planning department saying it doesn't, if you agree with that, then the motion should be that way. But we're not here to give suggestions for site plan and other design options. But to further Adam's point, is there something showing a cross section or an elevation, Michaela or Walter?
Yes, I can share that if it's okay.
Sure.
Share.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. It will be the site plan submission. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Oh, sorry. All right. So I'm going to start with the main floor. This is the current proposal with the site plan submission. And so as you see, it's 4 retail units. The second floor is, oops, I went the wrong way. The second floor is, of the second floor is a retail unit. Of the second floor is just a flat roof with a false wall around the perimeter, and the elevation can be seen following. So the actual second floor is here. The remainder of the building, there's no second floor behind this wall. So it gives the appearance of a second floor, but there's nothing there along the frontage. And this would be the one side facing Patton Street. This here. As you see, there's the window. This would be the line, the exterior wall of the proposed second floor of a portion of the building. And the remainder of the building would be just a false wall that you'd see here and just a flat roof on top of the first. That's the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so does that answer your question? Adam, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second question I guess I have is, how much discussion has planning had with the applicant regarding the your opinion with the second floor, going a full second floor?
Walter?
Yeah, we've had a discussion with Dax and I'm trying to recall who else is on phone. I forget your name. iPhone.
Ravi.
Ravi.
Yes, Davi. And yeah, we had a discussion with them prior to the circulation of the minor variance application.
Okay, Walter. So with commercial building, how much parking do you consider for the minor variance? We are not proposing any residential in the future. We are just sticking with the commercial because we don't want to change any plan from now. We are sticking on a commercial with the same floor plan, same, everything will be same. How many square feet do you consider, how many parking do you consider for the minor variance? That's what the main question is, right? For the meeting?
Right. So that would be up to the committee to decide. So the 4 members here this evening would have to weigh the merits of the application, what they feel is appropriate for this site, if they feel that the variance requested is minor, okay, there's 4 tests. Is it minor? Is it appropriate development for that site? Does it meet the intent of the official plan? And does it meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? So there's no hard and fast rule over percentages or numbers or anything like that. It's very subjective in the minds of the committee members that make the decision and weigh the evidence that's been presented and the staff reports and public comments and so on. So Herb, did you have your hand up at one point? You were going to ask something or make a comment, but those are the 4 tests that the committee members have to decide. There's no hard and fast rules. You are requesting a variance, so you're asking the committee to bend the bylaw to make an exception. So they weigh that carefully with a public process such as this. Herb?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, my computer decided to do an upgrade right in the middle. So I had to scramble to get on the other computer. I don't know if I missed, or this might be a repeat of what someone else has said, but it seems that not all the information has been forwarded to us regarding, like, this is going to be a 2-story building, what the occupancies are going to be, and or what the floor plans are for each of these stories. I don't think we've received all the information that we required when the application was forwarded to us. At least I haven't. I don't know if the other members have received this information or not. And do you have, is there copies of the floor plan? Is there copies of the proposed building? I may have missed it.
We just went, Walter just took us through that, the elevations and the floor plans.
I could actually quickly just show.
Just show Herb quickly for a minute. Sorry, Herb, you did miss that section, so I'll let Walter take it over.
Yeah, just give me a sec. Okay, Mr. Nobes, or can you see the screen?
I can see this here, but it doesn't show the second story.
Yeah, this is just, I just wanted to make sure you can see it before I start rolling out the plans. Okay, so this is the site plan, which shows the building in yellow. So this is a floor plate, and this is the parking lot. I think this was circulated with the application.
Yes.
The ground floor plan in a little more detail is, as you see here, 4 retail units with a staircase on the one end going to the second floor. The second floor consists of only a portion of the building is covered by a second floor. The remainder of the building is just an open flat roof. So the wall would be extended from here right across the frontage and returned back to, so basically it would be a false second floor with false windows. And that's what it would look like from Livingston Avenue. The actual unit upstairs would be just this portion. The remainder would be just the wall with nothing in behind it. This is from Patton Street, and this is from the parking lot from the north side, which shows the unit on the second floor here. But the remainder is just the roof would be here, and there'd be nothing above it. So this would be the false wall that would be on the Livingston side of the building. So again, I'll go to the second floor. So the false wall would be here with no floor space in behind it.
Okay, so the false wall is just going back partway on the short sides of the building. Is that correct? The one by
it looks like it looks like it returns to this point here, or maybe even up to here. I'm not sure. Here maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that help? Does that help, Herb?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Patel had a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. I think Doug saying rightly, I think there is a question, what is the nature of minor variance? But how do you consider, because see, when we are applying for an application for a minor variance, I think we should be having some idea what is called a minor variance. And it cannot be like, I think, say something different for one and the different for the other guy. So if you can spell it out, I think say it would be grateful. And second question is, I think say when I think say we refer to Ontario Building Code, even a partial, I think second floor is considered a two-story building. Now, when that is the case, I think say why urban design, I think say considers it other way. Yeah. These two questions, if you can answer me, please.
Well, I can try to answer the first question. So the nature of the request is considered by the committee. So there's no percentage rules. There's no hard and fast rules. Mathematically, it's the decision of the committee when they weigh the evidence presented, because every property is unique. So you can't say that everybody's treated the same in terms of getting a hearing, but there's no two identical properties or two identical requests in a case like this. So the committee looks at those 4 tests and they have to weigh the evidence. Is it minor in nature? And minor is not mathematical. It's just, do they feel it's minor? Is it appropriate for the development of the site? And does it meet the intent of the official plan? And does it meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? So those are the only 4 tests that the committee have to consider when they hear an application. Regarding the second story question, I wasn't quite sure what your question was again. It was something about second story and building code. Maybe you can.
Yeah, how can I think say respond to my question? Because when we say second two-story building, even a partial floor, the whole building is considered a two-story building. I have to treat the building like a two-story building. Am I right?
Yeah, that's Walter. I'll defer to you for that one. I'm not sure what he's.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to answer Mr. Patel's question directly, it may meet requirements or definition of a two-story building in terms of the building code. However, it doesn't meet the intent of what the official plan, which is what the committee has to consider, doesn't meet the intent of the official plan for this area. So when our policies say we want a minimum two-story building, and we have policies that say up to a maximum of 4 stories, the policies contemplate, and the intent of those policies is to have a full 2 stories, not to have a false second floor on a portion of the building. That's the intent of the official plan.
Mr. Walter, I think so we had a proposal earlier to this, and which had I think the full the front of the building, which
That's
had
correct.
I think the floor, I think say, and that was I think say we were I think given a comment, so we had to change it.
That's correct. And as you recall, the parking deficiency with the entire second floor being commercial was significantly larger than the 5 parking space deficiency that's being proposed now.
No, it was not I think so full. It was partial. I think so from the day I think so we had a pre-consultation meeting. Yeah.
That's right. I think the second floor. I think the parking requirement was well over 30, when you can only provide 20.
Okay, so if I have 20, I think how far I can go? Can I go 22, 23?
Again, that's up to the committee to determine whether or not it's appropriate.
No, but if you give us some idea, I think we can. I think how do we do the maths? Yeah.
Well, it's really up to the committee, Mr. Patel. It's the committee that makes the decision.
I understand, sir. I think, but I think say if you give us some input, I think say we are working on a positive tone, right? I think say if you give us some feedback, we work accordingly. Our idea is that we work with the city. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the planning staff have given some positive comments back as one suggestion as a way to not even require any variances. Now that might require constructing second floor residential, which you're certainly not being forced to. You don't have to build that, but then the committee will have to look at the existing application that's in front of them now and ask themselves if this is an appropriate development or a request for a variance for what's being proposed here, which is strictly commercial. So I'm going to start with the next question.
Again, I just want to add to it.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Here, it's important to recognize why we got into the discussion regarding the second story, because it's not necessarily pertinent to the variance application that's being requested. The reason we got into that discussion and tried to demonstrate what we did was that it's not a situation where you either need to get a variance in order to build something or you can't build anything at all. We wanted to demonstrate that it is possible to build a viable building that'll generate revenue in terms of a mixed use building on the site and meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So that was really the only purpose of our discussion regarding the residential on the second floor, just to illustrate that it is possible to develop the site without having to get a variance.
But I know
If you decide to get a variance, if you decide to get or apply for another variance at some point in the future regarding something else, and if depending on what the committee, how the committee deals with this particular application, then that'll be up to you. But we're just, the purpose of our letter or memo was to be able to demonstrate that the site can be developed viably and meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. That was really the only purpose of that.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Patel. I'm going to have Adam and Herb had their hands up first. I'm just going to have them ask some questions, and then I'll circle back to you. Where'd Adam
I think
go?
Herb
Adam,
had his up.
there he is. Go ahead, Adam.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I think Herb had his up first if he wants to go ahead. If not, Ed.
Herb?
Okay, yes, a couple things, two questions, through you, Mr. Chair. Is it mandatory that this be a two-story building under the planning zoning? And also, the buildings all around this structure or this proposed is a one-story building or one-story buildings. The buildings to the west, the buildings to the east, the new service station that went in, these are all one-story buildings. So is it mandatory that this lot have a two-story building?
That's a good question for Walter, because I did think of that too. That new service station that went in was a single story, or is a single story building.
Right. The application that was made, that application was made under the old zoning bylaw. As you recall, there were variances in the past for that particular building, but it wasn't for height. It was for other things. It was based on an old zoning regulation, 7174. So there wasn't a requirement at that time. So they applied for a variance they applied for a site plan. So their site plan application was based on old planning policy. The buildings to the west were renovations or repurposing of old buildings. So the dentist on the corner of I think it's Murray Street and Livingston, that was an old Chinese restaurant that got renovated, basically. The Noni's restaurant and the Subway was in Christie's Dairy that got renovated. So they were existing one-story buildings. But our new policy, and again, the intent of our official plan is to write through to Canadian Tire, I believe. Our policies now are any new development along that area has to be a minimum of 2 stories to be consistent with our downtown policies. Also, the area from Canadian Tire, the entire downtown, is identified by our official plan as a major intensification area. So if we are going to intensify anywhere in the municipality, we need to do it in the downtown for various reasons, including, especially with the mixed uses, to be able to support the commercial uses that are in the downtown, as well as to be sort of a pressure relief valve for any proposed intensification requests in the established residential areas, which we're trying to protect in the context that they're in, that they've been built in. So the strategy for the town is to intensify in the downtown and in Casablanca, which is what we're seeing, in order to protect and meet the intensification requirements that have been hoisted upon us by the province and the region through their provincial policy and our official plan, and identify where the intensification should take place so that the intensification doesn't take place in the areas that we want to protect, which is the established residential areas. And when we miss opportunities like this to intensify, particularly with residential units in the downtown, which is something that we like to see more of, we theoretically increase the pressure in the lower density residential areas. So that's essentially the context in which we're working.
So just to clarify, Walter, the official plan requires a minimum 2-story, but
As
the
does
but zoning in your report doesn't say that it requires a minimum 2-story, unless that was just skipped over. But so there is a minimum 2-story requirement in zoning as well.
There is.
Okay.
And again, to Mr. Patel's comment, technically, in the eyes of the building code, the proposed building meets the definition of building code 2-story, but it doesn't meet the intent of our official plan in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. So, like I said, we have to look at the big picture. This is an intensification area, and what's being proposed is not intensification.
Okay. Question.
The official plan.
Okay, and I see Adam's hand is up again. Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Walter, what's the actual height of the building? Because I'm just reading the official plan and it says it should have the appearance of 2 stories, and zoning bylaw gives a minimum of 7.5 meters.
Give me a second. The proposed height is 8 meters.
Okay, thank you.
And the false wall would be obviously the same height.
Okay. Second question, I guess, would be sort of an opinion question. Do you feel it would be beneficial to discuss this further with the applicant?
I'm sorry, could you ask the question again?
Yeah, would you feel there would be beneficial to have more time to discuss the 2nd-story proposal with the applicant?
Obviously, yes. You know, it's a site. It's a prominent site in town. It's our intent to support development, to support appropriate development that's consistent with our official plan or the intent of our official plan for the area.
Okay,
so my comment would be, yeah, I agree. There should be further discussion on the alternative plans, but the committee, I think, should at least deal with this first request, which is the variance for the parking that's in front of us this evening. I think we've got enough information and commentary from 2 agencies, the region and the town, as to their opinions as to the appropriateness of the variance as for this one. I think there are alternatives, as Walter's just thrown out as one possibility. And if the owner doesn't want to pursue it, that's great, but they'll have to consider, pending what the committee comes up with, what else they can do on the site. There's obviously other solutions to the site, pending the outcome of this decision, but I think we've got to deal with the application. I think there's enough information to deal with the subject application in front of us, but that's my opinion. But Dax, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
So that's the same. I have a question with Walter. So if we are proposing commercial, the floor space for the parking will remain as calculated. Like, let's say if I need 20 square meter for one parking, and I have only 20 parkings, I cannot go more than 20 parkings. I'm not proposing any residential in the future as well. I'm just proposing commercial. So how many square feet do you consider? Like, if I, as you said, I have a partial unit on a first floor, on a second floor. If I make that floor plan little bit more and leasable space remain as it is, are you okay with considering that plan?
Floor space based on 20 parking spaces is a pretty straightforward calculation. I think the parking requirement for a commercial, I think it's called, or for this particular type of use, multi-tenant building, the requirement is 1 space for every 20 square meters. So if you're providing 20 parking spaces, you just multiply that by 20 and you get 400 square meters.
Yeah. Okay. So if I make that as you said, like I have fake second story. If I make that floor plan a little bit more, it's not leasable. You get my point?
If you have 20 square meters on the ground floor or 200 square meters on the ground floor and 200 square meters on the second floor, that gives you 400 square meters and a 2-story building.
Okay, but if I change something on the ground floor, it will change side setbacks as well. Like I need to leave 0 to 2 meter on each side of the wall, each side of the property.
Yeah.
And as you have done that road widening.
Thank you for your questions, Dax. I don't think this is an appropriate venue to have this kind of a discussion. You know, if you're going to be proposing something different, I think we need to look at plans. We need to have a, you know, maybe even a face-to-face discussion about these kinds of details. But this venue, I don't think is appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree with Walter. We're going to go around in circles as to alternative plans. There are other ways to meet the requirements without requesting a variance. Walter just threw one out there, but you'd be here all night looking at alternatives, and we've got a lot of calculations to make at the same time, which I'd rather not do on the fly. But I think the committee's got enough information to decide whether this current application meets the 4 tests as required by the committee to consider a minor variance request application. So I'm going to give 2 more questions, or allow for 2 more questions, Adam and then Herb. Adam, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm just hearing a lot of, you know, like I said, we're saying going back and forth, different alternatives. Based on what I've read on the planning report is, you know, if they can reach an agreement, this variance might actually go away or maybe change a little bit. So at this time, I'd like to put a motion to defer the application to go back to staff so the applicant and them can talk about it a little more.
We lost your last 2 or 3 words there. Sorry, Adam.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying, yeah, I think maybe it's, I'd like to put a motion on the floor to defer this application so that the planning and the applicant can talk it out a little more, and maybe the variance will change a little bit, or maybe it'll go away totally. They might need it.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Herb?
I was just going to say the same thing. I think the applicants and planning have to talk a little bit more, and I agree with Adam that we should, if the applicants are agreeable with it, to defer it until they have a chance to review everything and discuss everything with the planning, and also probably the building department when they get into this, because they may have some additional requirements for the building once it goes 2-story, or if it goes 2-story.
Okay, I would agree with that suggestion because I can't support this application request as it currently exists. So I think to keep it alive and to allow them one more shot at perhaps reducing the square footage or the minor variance that's requested here for parking, perhaps they come up with an alternative, and then otherwise just turning this one down. If it does get defeated and they come back with a revised one that needs maybe 1 parking space, I'm just throwing something out, or a side yard, you don't have to reapply and resubmit the fees and so on. So I think this is one last kick at the can and maybe come up with a solution that both sides can live with, or planning can support. But we can keep the application alive with a deferral rather than a straight deciding on it one way or the other. So that would be my recommendation as well. So I'm going to call for a motion then. Adam, do you want to make a comment first, or do you have your hand up first before I call for the motion?
I'll take it down, but yeah,
okay.
I'll move the motion.
Okay, so we have a mover to defer the current application by Adam. Do we have a seconder? Herb? Any further discussion on this application? So the motion is moved and seconded to defer the application for further discussion between the planning department, building, and the applicant. All those in favor say aye to defer. Opposed, if any, was carried. So you've got one more chance to defer, to discuss the application, maybe modify it, and then come back hopefully at the next meeting, which I believe is in about 4 weeks from now, to see what you've come up with as an alternative solution. So All right, thanks everybody for attending tonight. Sorry we couldn't decide it one way or another, but I think this is a good alternative solution for a possible solution in 4 weeks or so.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good evening. That's all that we have on the agenda, so I believe we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.